Hello, welcome to my channel. My name is Libby and today we will be discussing Jodi Arias. This is by far one of my favorite true crime topics and I'm very excited to explore everything that happened in this case with you today. And remember, this video is for educational and entertainment purposes only. Form your own opinion based on the facts that I give you today. I will try my best to keep my opinions out of this, but no promises there. But before we dive in, don't forget to subscribe to my channel and hit the notification bell so you don't miss out on any of my other videos. And for my returning viewers, welcome back. Your support means the world to me. So let's start by talking about Jodi. Jodi was born on July 9th, 1980 in Salinas, California. She is the oldest of three. Her family seemed relatively normal. A hobby of hers growing up was playing the flute. She did really well in school and made good grades. And in middle school, she did something that was out of the ordinary for her. She tried growing weed in Tupperware containers on the roof of her parents' house. And when her parents found out, they were like really mad, obviously. Her parents actually called the police on essentially themselves, you know, because it was in their house, but they just wanted to show Jodi like, this is not gonna fly, not cool. Her parents did go through her room and go through her stuff, which, you know, she had a diary and she wrote in there that that felt like an invasion of privacy for her, which really broke the trust between her and her parents. Nonetheless, it seemed like she had a relatively normal upbringing, which is speculated about because, according to Jodi, she had a very different recollection of events. There's a lot of speculation that she lied about the things that happened between her and her family. A lot of that stuff did come out in court, which we will get into later, but she said her parents were quite abusive. She claimed that she was spanked really hard with wooden spoons and pushed into things like the family piano, for example. But, you know, aside from that, she was very smart, made good grades, very well read, and even told her mom that she should read more. She went to Eureka Union High School and ended up dropping out in 11th grade and got her GED. She always had a boyfriend as well, and there were really no breaks in between relationships for her. And when Jodi was in high school, her family moved to a new town, and she wrote in her diary feeling alien and alone. She was very sad and kind of depressed, but her parents described her as smart but strange, and her parents actually thought she was bipolar because she had such bad mood swings. They stated that it was hard to understand Jodi, but they did try their best, and her dad even said that Jodi was verbally abusive to her mom and never took responsibility for her actions. In high school, she discovered photography, and she really loved it. She would always take pictures of her boyfriends as well, and put a pin in that. So in 2004, she moved to Palm Desert, California with her boyfriend, and they moved in together and bought a home. Their relationship seemed a bit rocky, and they had a lot of fights, particularly over finances. So she tried to pick up some like odd jobs and other side hustles and got a job at Legal Shield as a saleswoman. Now, this is an MLM company, which is a multi-level marketing company, which you might know as a pyramid scheme. So the people that have employees under them typically succeed and make the most money. I never had any like good experiences with those. I only tried it once, didn't quite work out. But some people do get really successful from these organizations. So let's switch gears and talk about Travis Alexander now. Travis Alexander was born July 29th, 1977 in Riverside, California. Life for him growing up was extremely rough. He was one of 8 siblings. Parents were addicted to substances, and they would leave the kids to fend for themselves for extended periods of time. Mom would sleep for 4 days straight, so they would have to fend for themselves a lot with canned soup or spoiled food. He knew that he had to get out of there to survive, so he ended up moving to Riverside, California with his grandmother. His grandmother was in the Mormon religion, so he also decided to go into the Mormon religion as well because he started to feel a real sense of community that he had never felt before. So, you know, he went to church 24/7, was extremely dedicated to the church and loyal to the church, and he graduated high school and went on a 2-year mission trip with the church to Denver, Colorado. He ended up moving to Mesa, Arizona for the Mormon community as well, which is close to Phoenix, Arizona. Travis got a job with Legal Shield, Prepaid Legal Services, MLM, which is massive in the Mormon community. A lot of people with that religion, gravitate to those jobs and work for those kinds of places. And he found a passion as a motivational speaker from his rough upbringing. He really broke the curse and beat the odds and everything, so he found a passion doing that. And he also wrote a book about everything he went through called Raising Me. He also worked on a blog where he would talk about life. By 29, he was extremely successful, relatively good looking. I know everybody has like a type, right? But a lot of people thought he was like really good looking. He had a lot of friends, very flirtatious, a ladies' man, if you know what I mean. And he ended up buying a beautiful home where he also let 2 friends pay rent to live there. And he got a black pug named Napoleon, and things were just looking really good for him. A lot of people said he was really funny and outgoing and quite the character. September 2006, Legal Shield held a work conference in Las Vegas and had employees go all expenses covered. So a lot of things MLMs do is they get these lavish trips for their employees to really get motivated to sell. So that's what this essentially was. At the convention, they met people, had speaking events, motivational speakers, the whole nine. And one night, members got together to get dinner at the Rainforest Cafe, including Jodi. And the friends essentially set up kind of a blind date for Jodi and Travis to meet. People wanted to see Travis happy and settle down, and of course, Jodi is very pretty. So Travis walks up to the group. They introduced each other, and everyone said that there was an instant connection between Jodi and Travis. The whole dinner, they talked and got to know each other and were just quite smitten. Friends were excited because he'd been single for so long, and they were just really excited and they loved to see it. Jodi and Travis actually stayed up till 4 a.m. talking about everything. It's suspected that they hooked up and had a really good time, even though Travis actually told his friends that he was a virgin to seem like, the model Mormon man, because in that religion, you're not supposed to, get it on until marriage. He actually told his friends that he really liked Jodi and wanted to spend his life with her, and that she was like the perfect woman, except she wasn't Mormon. So Jodi and Travis, exchanged numbers after this meeting, and he went back to Mesa, Arizona, and Jodi went back to Desert Palm. But they stayed long distance relationship. Mind you, she still had a boyfriend this whole time, but we're gonna get into that later. So Travis figured that he could convert Jodi to Mormonism, so he gave her the Book of Mormon and invited her to church a few times. He had a Mormon missionaries go to her home, knock knock, and when he would talk to her, he would say Bible quotes, just kind of put that in there. And later he gave her a CTR purity ring and some, paintings of Christ and a church biography for his church. So she said she was already interested in the Mormon religion, likely from working with so many people that were Mormon. And as the relationship got more involved, they weren't quite in a relationship yet. Really hard to figure that out because I wasn't in their lives. But essentially the relationship was getting more involved. So only 2 months later, she was baptized by Travis at the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, November 26, 2006. And it is unclear when the relationship between Jodi and her other boyfriend ended. Some sources say before the baptism and some say after. February 2007, Jodi and Travis made it official, living long distance. They would take a lot of vacations together. Jodi would bring the camera and take pics. They actually bought a book called 1,000 Places You Have to See Before You Die. And within the course of the whole relationship, 82,000 emails were exchanged, and they sexted a lot, okay? They were getting it on. And Travis said Jodi was like his kryptonite. He was just addicted to her. In the Mormon community, that is a big no, you don't do that. But he just couldn't help himself. They gave in to the temptations, and they were getting nasty, okay? Travis said he had a big weight on his shoulders because of this, because he knew he wasn't supposed to be doing it, but he couldn't help himself. Jodi would post a lot of pictures of them together. She was extremely proud to be with him, but it seemed like he wasn't quite on that same wavelength, He was actually texting other women while they were together, and Jodi caught him flirting with other women as well, so she ended up dumping him in 2007 for that. And there are sources that say he like crawled back to her and even proposed to her, and she said no. But at some point they get back together, and you know, at the very least, we're continuing to talk, see each other, and, you know, get freaky. So friends and roommates said that she was weird because she was so possessive of him. Jodi would follow him everywhere, and he was rarely seen alone if she was around. She went to the bathroom with him and would wait outside the door. She'd be all on his phone when he was on it, like, who you talking to? What you talking about? What are you doing? You know? And she would hack his MySpace and read his messages, go through his phone. I mean, she was doing some crazy stuff, you know? His friends even decided to have an intervention for him to let him know that she's weird, and they were worried about him. They were worried about his well-being and worried that she would hurt him, which is really hilarious because they did this while Jodi was there. Like, why would they do that? Nonetheless, the friends said that they were in his room and they were all sitting on his bed. They were letting him know, like, she's weird, y'all should break up. And they even said, open the door. I bet she's sitting outside the door listening. He opened the door. There's Jodi. So yeah, this moment for him was like a moment of realization that he shouldn't be with her and that this is weird and toxic and unhealthy, and she's just too obsessed with him. So one of Travis's friends even tell Jodi that she's acting really weird, and she did not care. She didn't care what anyone else thought, what any of his friends thought. All she cared about is what Travis thought of her, not anyone else. So Travis broke up with her after this intervention and she left the house, but this did not stop Jodi from trying to be with him. So she ended up writing emails to Travis saying that someone was stalking her, was looking in through her windows, breaking into her house, and even told her that Travis doesn't deserve her because he's just stayed away from her and that she should be with the stalker, essentially. And Travis told his friends that he was really worried about Jodi, and they were like, are you serious right now? That is clearly not true, and that is Jodi. Jodi is her own stalker, and you shouldn't listen to that, basically. They told him that she just wants to live with you, bro. And this is all alleged from Jodi, but I personally don't think there was a stalker anywhere. If anyone was a stalker, it was Jodi, but anyway, let's be real. She still lived in Arizona, but she couldn't afford her house anymore. So she actually decided to get a house 10 minutes away from where Travis lived and didn't even tell him. And Jodi didn't talk to her family much, but every so often she would talk to her family, and she told them that she was moving to Mesa because she was planning on marrying Travis, and they were just like, okay. After moving, she went to go surprise him and let him know that she lives there now, and I imagine he was like... So around this time, the craziness really ramped up, okay? She would sneak into his house, into his bed, naked, and you know what would happen from there. Travis seemed to have seen this as like a friends with benefits ordeal, and he didn't seem ready to commit long term, but Jodi couldn't handle this or handle him being with another woman while he was with her, so things got weird. She began stalking him around this time, breaking in through the doggy door, slashing his tires. She would also read his journal, snoop through his stuff, and he told his friends that this was upsetting having his privacy invaded like this, and he was especially upset about the tires. The tires are so petty because to get 4 new tires is like really expensive, so Jodi, you need to stop, okay? She was looking in through like his windows as well, just being weird and crazy, and she would show up unannounced and knew the lock code, which Travis, why did you not change the lock code? But anyway, she obviously was not welcome at all into his house, but she didn't care. Travis said that he would stand his ground most of the time, but sometimes he would give in to this nonsense and they would hook up. Beyond me. Maybe he liked it. I think deep down, he might have liked it. It's unclear when this happened, but in the timeline, Jodi told him that she didn't have a job yet, so he would pay her to clean his house and gave her a sexy maid outfit. Moving on. Travis was trying to move on and even found another woman named Lisa through his church. And Jodi was really keeping tabs on this by hacking his social media, his emails, and reading the messages. Jodi, of course, didn't like this at all. So she started harassing Lisa by knocking on her doors and windows late at night. And one night, Lisa and Travis were chilling at his house, watching a movie, and the dog noticed and started barking. So Travis goes to investigate and finds Jodi outside peeking through the windows, girl. What? Okay, so Jodi says, oh, it's no big deal. I was just watching y'all sleep. So Travis tells her to leave, and she does. And the next morning, Lisa receives an email from an anonymous person calling her a shameful whore and chastised her in the name of God. No proof it was Jodi, but like, once again, let's be real, who else would have done that, okay? So if Travis went to Lisa's house, he'd see his tires had been slashed. Wonder who did that. And Lisa eventually, poor Lisa, she was like, I'm out. Like, I can't deal with this anymore. And honestly, I would too. Somehow Travis convinced Jodi to move back to Eureka, California with her grandparents, and, you know, said maybe they could be friends eventually, but like, you gotta go. And so she did. Once Jodi left, Travis was really happy. Jodi was working as a waitress at the restaurant her parents owned and had a lot more time for photography because she loved to take pictures. And she also tried to put herself out there and date other people. She met a guy named Ryan who also worked for Legal Shield, which, by the way, is pretty hilarious and like seems a bit petty, but what do I know? She felt like he was an awesome guy, really good looking, very successful, but he lived in Utah. So Ryan in Utah and Jodi stayed in touch through like emails and like talking on the phone. And Travis actually moved on as well and met a woman February 2008 at the Mormon LDS singles night named Mimi. And she was perfect to him, but she only saw him as a friend. Jodi actually started reaching out to Travis again and calling him, leaving voicemails, talking all the time, phone, you know what, everything. She was recording the conversations between them too, which is weird, but it's Jodi. Something happened as well that we don't know about, but they got into a big fight through emails, and Travis was calling her a liar, saying everything between them was a lie and to never speak to him again. And Travis was like for sure done. So he even posted something about her on his blog. He made a post, his last post, on May 18th, 2008 that said, "Why I want to marry a gold digger." And it basically is just like him adjusting his priorities, only dating to marry. Dating is a job interview, desperately trying to figure out if his date had an axe murderer inside of him. Red flag. May 28th, 2008, a burglary took place at Jodi's grandparents' home. I know I didn't say that word right. It's a really weird word. Burglary? Burglary? I think that's right. But anyway. After the grandparents left Jodi at the house and then Jodi left, the people broke in. And all they took was a handgun belonging to her grandfather, some cash, and electronics. June 2008, in Redding, California, Jodi made plans to drive to Utah to see her new boyfriend, Ryan. She made a stop at a budget rent-a-car, and this place was more than an hour away from her home. She rents a white car, even though they initially offered her a red car. She said the red car would attract attention, so she didn't want it. She wanted the white car. So Jodi embarks on this trip, and she stops at her ex-boyfriend's house, who she's still friendly with, to borrow 2 gas cans. While she was supposed to be driving to Utah, her phone died, so a few hours later, it was turned back on. She was supposed to get to the boyfriend's house on June 4th, Ryan, the new boyfriend, that house on June 4th, but made it on June 5th. And throughout this drive, she was calling and emailing and texting Travis. She even left a voicemail saying that she wanted to make plans with him since she was supposed to be going to Utah, and drove 100 miles in the wrong direction. When Jodi returned the rental car, the floor mats were taken out, and she said there was a Kool-Aid stain. During this time, Travis was back in Mesa, Arizona, and excited for a work trip to Cancun, Mexico. He had been working out to look good for this trip and also invited Mimi, his new love interest, and hoping that she'd fall for him, because remember I said that Mimi only saw him as a friend. The day before the trip, on June 9th, no one had heard from him, and he even missed an important work conference. Mimi couldn't get in touch with him either, so, you know, her and a couple of his friends were now worried, like they hadn't heard from Travis, and that really wasn't like him. So they all go to his house, they knock on the door, no answer, so they decide to go in through the garage with a garage code. They get in there, and his roommate, who's home, is like, what are y'all doing here? They asked if they'd heard from Travis, and he said, Travis has already gone to Cancun, and they said, no, he's not. The roommate goes and gets a spare key to Travis's bedroom. They open the bedroom door, and what they find inside is horrifying, okay? They got a huge whiff of something nasty, right? They see a huge blood stain on the carpet. They look around, they see blood everywhere in Travis's room. Travis's roommate goes further and finds Travis naked in fetal position in his stand-up shower. Mimi said she didn't want to go in there, so she goes outside and calls 911. Investigators come and they ask, who do you think did this? And everyone said Jodi Arias. Inside Travis's room, investigators were looking for any DNA they could find, fingerprints, hair, fingernails, anything. And based on the crime scene, detectives knew that this was a personal attack. There was evidence that Travis really fought back, blood smears all over the walls, down the hallway, bathroom covered in blood. Travis was stabbed 27 times. His throat was slit so bad that he was almost decapitated, and he was shot in the head. His body had been there for a while, so the decomp was already happening. Very scary scene. It was determined that Travis Alexander was murdered on June 4th, 2008, and while Travis's friends all knew it was Jodi, they didn't have proof, so they had to go on and plan a funeral without any justice. Now, somehow, Jodi found out that there was a funeral and showed up. Jodi, go home, girl. Go home. Around this time, Jodi called the station herself to ask to talk to a detective, and they said, okay, someone will call. No one called in enough time for Jodi, so she called again. And she finally talks to someone and tells them that, she no longer lives with Travis, but she's willing to help in any way that she can. She told them the last time they spoke was on Tuesday, and she had a 45-minute call with this investigator, okay? And the detective said what stood out is that she said he was getting fit for his trip to Cancun, Mexico, so there's no way someone like her could overpower someone like him, and at least 2 people had to have done this. And the detective was like, what? At the crime scene, there was a bloody handprint on the bathroom wall as well, and they noticed a spot of blood on the washing machine. So inside the washing machine, they open it and they find sheets and a black camera. Now, everything was put through the wash cycle with bleach, but the memory on the camera was erased as well and went through 5 steps to delete it. But on June 19th, the memory card was recovered, and the first picture they found on that camera was Jodi naked. And the timestamp on the photo was June 4th, the day that Travis was murdered. They keep looking, and the next set was Travis naked in bed, naked in the shower, and taking more pictures. The photo was taken at 5:30 p.m. looking at the camera, scared. And I'm gonna put a picture of that right here. The following pics were photos of the murder. Horrifying, but there was a picture of him on the ground with blood coming from his head. And she took a picture of him in the shower, and the next shots were the camera like falling, taking pictures, you know what I mean? Like the camera kept taking pictures as it was falling. So it seemed that while he was in the shower, she was taking pictures and the attack began. It also seems like once she attacked him and shot him, she tried to like wash his body in the shower with water. So she deleted the pictures, so she thought, took all the bedding and the camera and put them in the washer. So the police go to her grandparents' house to make the arrest on July 15th, and they determined that the same caliber gun that was used was the gun that was stolen from her grandparents' house during that robbery, if you remember me saying that. When they got there, they saw the rental car packed with clothes, 2 knives, a 9mm semi-automatic handgun, a bunch of condoms, and her sporting her new brown hair. They bring her in for interrogation, and they notice that she has cuts on her fingers, and she said that that is from bartending because she's really clumsy. Now, I don't know if y'all know this, but a lot of times when someone attacks someone else, you can also get wounds from attacking somebody else. They asked if she had anything to do with the murder, and she denied it, but they bust out the photos and she said, that looks like me, right? There was even a picture of Travis's body on the ground with her foot and leg in the picture. Pretty damning evidence. Jodi said she did go to Utah and checked with Ryan, and he said she did come, but she didn't arrive till June 5th. Now, can you imagine Jodi going to see Ryan right after she did that? If I was Ryan, I would be horrified and probably never date anybody ever again. He said, she did come, nothing out of the ordinary, right? But when she was interrogated, she said she didn't do it, and if she did do it, she would beg for the death penalty. She said the handprint didn't belong to her, but both of their blood was found at the crime scene. She said her DNA was already there because she would go see Travis like all the time, right? But, you know, they decided that was enough evidence and they were going to go ahead and book her. And she asked if she could clean up before she was booked because she wanted to do her makeup for the booking photo. And while she waited, she was in the room, like the interrogation room, singing Oh Holy Night, doing handstands and yoga. And at one point, you could even hear her say, "Do you still hate me?" Jodi gets booked and she's not allowed to do her makeup. And I'm really glad because really, Jodi, and she smiles in her booking photo. Okay. So the next day they bring in a female investigator and she does not like this and asks for Detective Flores to come back. And she said she wanted to tell the truth. She said not only was she there for the day that he was murdered, but she was there while it happened. She said 2 people came in dressed as ninjas and they broke in while she was there, and she said that they were trying to assassinate Travis. Didn't know why they were after him, but they were. And, you know, she was hit in the head. She woke up and saw them in ski masks and Travis was begging Jodi for help. She said that they went through her bag, found her address, her ID, all of her information. She fought off one of the ninjas who was a woman, and she got away because they were there to kill Travis and not her. Police asked her why she didn't call 911, and she said because her phone was dead, and she was scared to call 911 because she didn't want them to come after her and her family. Detective Flores clearly didn't believe this at all and was, quite frankly, over her crap at this point. So on July 8th, Jodi was indicted on first-degree murder. So let's move on to the trial. The trial began on January 2nd, 2013, and she was at trial with brown hair, glasses, and frumpy clothes, trying to look like an innocent librarian, you know. I would never do that. That wasn't me. During the trial, they put the story together with the evidence that they complied. And here's what they think happened. Jodi really began to decide that she wanted to do this with Travis because of the Cancun trip with Mimi Halls. They think that Jodi was just insane with jealousy because she didn't want anyone else to have Travis. And when she took the trip, she filled up 2 gas cans from Cali to Utah, trying to prove that it was premeditated, you know, and she didn't want to get caught at gas stations. So she turned her phone off and everything to not get tracked. And they're not sure what happened when she got there, but, you know, Travis let her in. You know, they took sexy photos and did what they do, you know, got in the shower to take more photos. And Jodi asks for the final shot of him staring into the camera. And then she stabbed him in the chest. And, you know, he steps out, falling forward towards the sink and coughing based on the blood splatter. It's believed that she comes behind him and stabs him repeatedly in the back. Travis, still alive and fighting, tries to break away and heads down the hallway. At the end of the hallway, he falls to the ground, and it's believed that at this time is when she slit his throat. She drags him back to the bathroom, shoots him, and drags him into the shower to rinse him off. Jodi then cleans up, puts the bedding and the camera into the washing machine, and then heads to Utah. She turns her phone off until she's well away from Travis's home, and then she calls his phone, texts him, and emails him to make it seem like they really did have plans to meet in the future, but she did not go see him on the trip there. During trial, she changes her story a few times. She said that she goes to his house in Arizona, they're hooking up, and she drops the camera. She said that he reacts very poorly in a fit of rage. Travis stepped out of the shower, picked her up screaming that she's a stupid idiot, body slammed her onto the tile, and said that a 5-year-old can hold a camera better. She hit the tile, rolled over, and started running down the hallway. She ran into a closet and slammed the door. She grabbed the gun and ran out. He chased her, and then she pointed the gun at him thinking that he would stop, but he kept running, so he grabbed her again, and then that's when she shot him. Which obviously doesn't make any sense because of the amount of times that he was stabbed and, you know, slit his throat as well. The defense tried to argue that she wasn't new to abuse because her father abused her, other partners abused her, and her mother abused her. She said that her mom would carry around a wooden spoon in her purse to hit her with. She said this in trial in front of her parents, and their faces were interesting, to say the least. Her parents said that she made all of this up, and the prosecution said that there are no journal entries about this because they have all of her journals, and it's debated to this day if that's true or not. Since they're Mormon and, you know, getting it on regularly, she used that as proof to show that he wasn't a good man. And she has receipts of the emails and texts. She recorded all the voicemails and phone calls to show that he was a bad guy. She has a call recorded where he said that he wanted to tie her up to a tree, and they used this in hopes to prove that he's the crazy and aggressive one. Now, everyone has their kinks, right? And I am not hating on anyone who wants to have tree fun, but that does not prove that he tried to hurt her, so that's why she did this. Like, it just doesn't make any sense to me, personally, personal opinion. Another story she said was that when she got to his home, he was pleasuring himself, and when she looked on the bed, there was a picture of a little boy, which is very trifling and messed up because he's not here to defend himself, and I personally don't think that that is true. But anyways, she said that after this, he got into the shower and she was taking photos of him, and he got mad at her, so she dropped the camera. He tried to attack her, but she was able to grab a knife and stab him in the back. So she went to get the gun from the closet, and she said she blacked out and doesn't remember shooting him, dragging him, or anything. The next thing she remembers is that she was driving in the desert and that he is just a pedophile and a bad guy, which, again, he's not here to defend himself, so that's kind of wrong. But anyways, the verdict on May 2013 is that she was found guilty of first-degree murder. However, the jury was unable to reach a unanimous decision on the sentencing, so this resulted in a mistrial for the penalty. The following day of sentencing, she shows up with a white t-shirt that says Survivor on it. And she tried to sell these shirts in prison to represent women of domestic abuse. Anyway, the second sentencing retrial was in 2014. A second penalty phase was conducted, and it determined Arias' sentence. In April 2015, Jodi Arias was sentenced to natural life in prison without the possibility of parole. So that is all I have for you today. A lot of people actually think that Jodi is innocent, and I'm very interested to see your opinions on the matter. Do you think she's guilty, or do you think she's innocent? Let me know in the comment section down below. If you made it this far into the video, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. I hope that this was very entertaining or very educational. My personal opinion, I think she is very guilty. I mean, just her behavior before the incident took place shows that she was very possessive of him and could not stand the thought of him with anyone else. The evidence is very damning, in my opinion. I think she did it because of jealousy and rage. But that's all I have for you today. Thank you so much for watching this video. I hope you have a great day or night whenever you're watching it, and I hope to see you in the next. Bye.